extraordinaire, the gemologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. Today I have a pretty special episode. I get together with Jason Connerly of Nerds RPG Variety Cast, and we're going to talk about a show Duster and whether or not it is a modern Western, and what is a modern Western. Just talk about the genre in general and how we could run a game in it. So it's a really fun conversation. Specifically, well, in the title you can see we discuss the show Duster. We try to make it spoiler minimum, so you can go watch it. Right now it's on Vax. As of the dropping of this, there's 7 episodes out, so the conclusion is still out. You can still catch up. Or, hey, wait till episode 8, and if you like to binge those things, well, go off and binge it. It's got several familiar faces, and we discuss who those people are and how they do and all that kind of stuff. So I think also, before I get into that, I'm just going to give sort of a game update. It's been some time. I went to North Texas RPG Con, then I had a kind of a busy week when I got back with a cool networking event, and it really made me proud of San Antonio, its military heritage, and its military medical heritage. It's very fascinating. So, anyway, something to look into and something to discuss further, but not in a gaming podcast necessarily. So, what have I been doing since? And actually, it was kind of a whirlwind since I got back from when I got back the following weekend, and then the networking event I went to. But I did get a game in. I got a game of Traveler, or Legend of the Sky Raiders, which was really fun. I have a couple new players who are bringing some energy and life into our Traveler game. We're using the Mongoose Traveler 2nd edition, reimagining the classic Keith Brothers Legend of the Sky Raiders. We'll see if we get to On the Trail and the last one, Legacy of the Sky Raiders, something like that. I can't remember what they're all called. I'm sure someone might correct me, or if they don't, well, you'll find out soon enough. So we kind of missed some. Well, we did play one episode of Blood Lords, and that went pretty well as the aftermath of this big fight, and the player characters got to they did this big fight. We did the aftermath. They kind of temporary or allied with this Medusa, and she said, "Yeah, I'll talk to you where this place is that you need to go to next to follow, what the quarry that they're following." But then her little construct creepy dolls got out of control, so they had to help her with those, which was interesting. So we'll see how that goes. So it's been pretty good. They're 10th level now, which is pretty amazing. I have gotten in a game of One Ring, and I was able to play an episode of Shadow of the Weird Wizard that is run by Kevin Madison. The One Ring is really still a fascinating game. I like how the story is emerging as I've given player characters hooks here and there. So we did. Where was I? We did get another session of. I'm playing Traveler twice, 3 times actually. I'm running twice, and playing once, but we did get a session in of Traveler, and also a fun. Instead of playing Traveler on Dungeon Musings channel, he's been running some Fantasy Craft, which has been pretty neat. So that's a really neat game as well. And then we didn't really do a Dune thing this week, nor did we meet with Hyperborea in the last few weeks. But we did finally start Masks of Nyarlathotep using Cohorts Cthulhu set in the Roman period, and we have started our Roman adventures. So that's coming up soon. So yeah, I think. I was able to participate in a couple sort of cons. I participated in a Weekend with Good Friends, and I ran a couple games there. I ran a reprise of my Pendragon Dark Tower inspired game, Song of Roland. I thought it was a big hit. And I also ran a reprise of a Cohorts Cthulhu adventure called The Lost Eagle that I ran back at BSRCon 4. So that was pretty fun. And I finally played in a game of Vaesen. So that was a neat little weekend. there. And then this past Saturday was Free RPG Day, and I got to run a game in person. I ran the game Castle Whiterock, or the Castle Whiterock Prelude that they put in there for 5e. So I'm looking forward to that Kickstarter when it comes out. Although I do have a PDF that I purchased from Goodman Games of the original 3.5. I really like their kind of world that they created with all their different modules. I thought that was pretty cool. And they have like a couple box sets for that Castle Whiterock, and then like a known world or the known world box set or whatever the name of the world is called, Aerith or something like that. That they subsequently I think used for their 4E and then DCC stuff. Anyway, let's get to our great conversation with Jason Connerly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geomologist Presents. I have a special show and a special guest with me today, and I had contacted the special guest. I'll get him to introduce himself in a second because I found a show on, I think it's on Max, the show, and I'm like, oh man, this is kind of up our alley, I suspected, and I prompted my guest to check it out, and he did, and I think it touched some of his little touchstone buttons and the type of genres we like. I'll let him speak for himself if that's true. Um, but what we're going to do today is discuss the show Duster and how it fits into the modern Western genre. And my special guest is none other than Jason Connerly of Nerds RPG Variety Cast.
Hey, Carl, thank you for inviting me today.
Yeah, I was really happy that you thought this would be fun to do and that you might like the show. So have you just generally have you liked the show?
I have, I think so. So we're not going to go super into spoilers here
No.
with the show, but it, I think the show's trying too hard, to be honest. I mean, the
I can
time
see
period
that.
I really enjoy. I enjoy the actors. I especially enjoy Rachel Hilson in this. I think she does a great job as Nina Hayes as our lead FBI agent.
Right.
But pretty much the cat, and it's great to see Keith David again as well, right?
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, he's great as Ezra Saxton in here. But I think everybody does a decent job in here. So it's not the acting. I think almost, and this would be on the showrunners and the writers and all, but they almost throw too much out. They're trying to, not only are we having, deep conspiracies and all, we're also, and I'm not against the idea of social messages in film or in TV or things like that. And I'm definitely not somebody that's going to cry, oh, this is woke or this or that, because I don't buy into all that. But this is almost trying to put too much up front at once, right?
Yeah, I
Because we're
think so. There's a
tackling
lot of
workers' right. Yeah, we're tackling workers' rights. We're tackling racial issues. We're tackling gender issues. We're tackling just the variety of things we're tackling here is almost too much for one season for one show. I think
yeah,
it's almost
I can see
I
that.
think they've overpacked a little bit. And the same thing with like the music. I think they're trying a little bit too hard. I'm not trying to be negative on the show. I am enjoying it. I'm all caught up on it. But like with the musical callbacks and all that, it's almost a little bit forced to
Mm.
me. It doesn't feel, and I watch a lot of 70s shows and movies and old stuff. So it's almost like in your face as opposed to natural to it, just from my perspective. But again, I am enjoying it. I would recommend people check it out. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, if
I'm
you like
not
muscle
down on
cars, if you like muscle cars, then I would say the modern Western genre,
it.
it's definitely a show to check out. And I agree. I think like I know in it's so the show Duster, it's set in the Southwest in 1972. It follows sort of this getaway driver played by Josh
Josh
Holloway,
Holloway.
who you
Yep.
know from Lost, right, as Jim Ellis, and the FBI's first black woman agent, who's played by Rachel Hilson. She's Nina Hayes, and and as Jason mentioned, it has Keith David, who you've seen in many, many, many things as Ezra Saxton, the main uh, mob boss, as it were. And she is the FBI's first black woman agent, and they team up to take down a crime syndicate led by led by Keith David character Ezra Saxon. So far, it's played through 6 episodes, And I say some episodes honestly are hit and miss, maybe because they throw way too much or force, the musical callbacks, or some of the titles of the episodes are actually the this kind of music that comes here and there in the show as well, right? So maybe there's some thematic thing in there, but I am enjoying it. I do like the driving. I do like the sort of stunts, the driving through the desert type of scenes. The chase scenes are really fun, and the action is engaging. So it is created by J.J. Abrams and Latoya Morgan, and so maybe is J.J. Abrams known for throwing way too many things and threads in? It's like you can have too many threads and it becomes a tangle. I guess that's a good metaphor, for this type of show. But it does have a lot of conspiracies. I agree, and I mean, it's 1972, so contemporarily, that's like the Nixon administration. So you can imagine if they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink, well, they get to throw that stuff in there too. So, and maybe that almost like jumps the shark for me. But so far, I've enjoyed it, and I think it's for me, a good inspiration to maybe explore, since we're all gamers here and kind of geeks and of this little niche hobby and these kind of period shows, then could inspire to kind of run something, or take ideas from this and run with it, in your games. That's the way I see it. I always look for a show that can inspire me into creativity, to get something to the table. I guess that's what I do. So it is kind of, I guess, in that category of a neo-Western or contemporary Western. So do you think um, gets that? How do you, what does that look like or embody to you?
Yeah. So I don't see, and it's interesting because you mentioned this and then you mentioned the modern Western, and I'm happy to talk about both. I don't consider this a modern
Mm,
Western, to be honest. So far, it's a
which,
crime thriller. It's
yeah,
set in the Southwest, right?
right. Hmm.
And we have, and that's another thing. We have like the reservation there, and we
Right,
have her
right. They do.
partner.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got a partner who's a American Indian
He has
agent, or a
Navajo.
Native
Yeah.
American agent. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, which again, I like the actor, and I enjoy their dynamic together.
Yeah.
Um,
That
I'm not
that's
down
something
on the
unfortunate. Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. I'm not down on the show. I kind of I wonder, although there's some hesitancy from the interviews I've seen, whether there'll be a second season. But I
Mm,
wonder what's left to do in the second season, if they because they're trying to jam everything in here, which is it's almost frustrating because I do like the show, and like I say, I like the characters, and I think it's an interesting dynamic, and even
hmm.
the things like Josh Holloway, Jim Ellis are the getaway drivers, like his dad and his family stuff, and I think there's a lot of interesting connections in there, and obviously, Agent Nina Hayes, her mom. At some point, we're going to meet her mom. She's calls and talks to her mom on the phone, and
Hmm.
helping her with the case, like with advice and things. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting things going on in here. And our showrunners, like I say, J.J. Abrams. Everybody knows J.J. Abrams.
Hmm.
Latoya Morgan, of course, is involved in like Into the Badlands and
Yep.
Turn,
Hmm.
Washington Spies, which are both great shows. So we've got some great creators involved here.
Yes, that's
And
probably why the choreography is really good for the fight
yeah,
scenes and the
hmm
action scenes. Latoya Morgan's really good at that. I mean, Into the Badlands had some great
right.
choreography, right? Turn, some amazing cinematography and scenes. So so they're good. They're good at what they do. These two, although I feel maybe the J.J. Abrams tries to stop, and maybe that's it. Maybe right, they didn't know if they're going to get a second season, so they're trying to throw everything in,
Yeah.
just in case. Because there are things I think that could have been, like, you could pull out some plot lines, like the truckers workers rights thing, even
hmm
though it's connected with. I mean, you didn't have to like put it so quickly. I think it could have been a slower development, and just that kind of, in a way, maybe it's all interconnected, but it kind of takes away from the main conspiracy, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I
That's
agree
an
with that.
example of something that, and yeah, it's tacitly connected to Jim's backstory and his sort of sense of how he fits into the community uh, here in southern Arizona. But I don't know,
Well,
too heavy,
yeah,
maybe
and
heavy-handed.
maybe heavy hands the wrong word because I don't dislike any of the individual subplots, to be honest.
Right. There's
I
just too
think they're all
many.
interesting. Yeah, they're just too many at once, in my opinion. So,
And even in episode 5, they introduced yet another one. I'm like, where did this come from? And that's why I was like, I don't know. And that's a
right.
little frustrating because I do like, I mean, I would, because I think they're in the main conspiracy, there are enough twists and turns that you don't need to throw in like, I don't know, red herrings or distractions or sub threads. And
Hmm.
to me,
Right. And especially not in an 8 episode season. If this was old TV when we had 23 episode
yeah.
seasons, you
Mhm.
could do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, because then you just like touch on, you touch on the workers' rights things in an episode or every third episode or something, and yeah, that's kind of true. Um, yeah, I think let's see what else. So, what do you like of the idea of like the getaway driver
I,
as the
well,
main? Yeah, the two main characters. I guess we should discuss maybe them,
yeah.
um, Jim and Nina, right? So let's take Jim first because I think they do introduce him first, like the in the initial. Right, you get that, and of course the whole Duster, that's his vehicle, So
Right. And, getaway drivers and drivers, that goes back a long way in the genre.
mhm.
We're talking crime thriller genre, things like that. We have The Driver, we have there's a number of movies that kind of focus on, driving and the drivers and these car chases. I mean, even we look at you could even bring in something like Smokey and the Bandit. Obviously, that's a much
Right.
lighthearted thing, but it's an ongoing kind of thing. And I really like I don't know. I mean, obviously, car action's fun. It's fun to see stunts. It's interesting to see the vehicles. I don't know. So I'm not super familiar with Josh Holloway. I haven't watched a lot of contemporary TV, and that's mainly where he's been. It
Yeah,
is
Lost is what he's kind of known for,
yeah.
I believe.
So I'm not real familiar with
He
him.
was Sawyer in Lost, if people are wondering. He's got that
Yeah.
long hair. There's a lot of big
Hmm.
hair in this show. That 70s aesthetic, which I kind of like. I don't know why. I was, more a child of the 80s. They're born in 1970, more, my
Right.
formative years were the 80s, but I remember that kind of stuff. Having to
No,
wear bell bottoms in elementary school and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think it's great.
yeah, I've warmed up to him. I'm not still not totally sold on Josh Holloway in this role. I think he's pretty good. I almost think they want you to like him more maybe than he's getting across. I think that Rachel Hilson probably is the better actor of the two of them.
I think
I
so, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he was in Colony also in
mhm,
Yellowstone apparently, but he looks very different than in Yellowstone. So I guess he's
yeah.
familiar with that kind of sweaty old West or the sort of sweaty Western type of vibe. There's no air conditioning in this movie, apparently.
That's true. Yeah, and to be fair, once we get to it, once we're I guess we'll talk about her and Duster for a minute longer, but Yellowstone is much more what I would think of as a contemporary
Yeah,
western or
that's
modern
true. Yeah,
western,
with
to
the
be
big
honest.
hats and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is much more of a crime kind of thing,
Yeah, I
right?
guess so. I mean, but well, with the driving, like you just, I mean, that kind of the driving and the trucker movies of the 70s, right? EJ
Hmm.
and the Bear show, Smokey and the Bandit, Convoy, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Which all these things kind of interact, right? You like the truckers' rights, right? It's very blatant. So
Yeah. Breaker Breaker.
yeah,
There are
yeah.
a number of
So
great
is that
trucker
its own
movies.
separate genre then?
Yes. Yeah. The
Yeah.
trucker movies. Yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
So
Yeah.
so this
Yeah.
is more, you think it's more akin to that, or just you think a 70s
Now, I
crime
think it's
conspiracy,
crime. No, I think it's crime because the main emphasis here is this,
the feds, yeah.
is the organization, right? Is Ezra
Yeah.
Saxon's organization
Yep.
and the FBI trying to turn this person inside the organization. So it's I look at this more of a crime thing,
Hmm.
and a lot of it is urban. I mean, yeah, they're driving out in the in the open plains and stuff, but for the most part, a lot of it's in the city in Phoenix or in depending where they go. We have a lot of interior scenes too, so it's not just out in the
Yeah.
desert.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Yeah, I
yeah,
love the shiny cars. I mean, I'm shocked that not that the Duster is still pristine by episode 6.
well, he takes care of it. It was
Yeah.
his brothers. He's got to take care of
Oh,
it, right?
yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very significant in the show. It's this 1970 Plymouth Duster that he drives around, the title.
Hmm.
But yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, so Josh Holloway, well known, kind of that kind of hair. He's gotten back to that like long hair that his character Sawyer had in Lost, as opposed to like a shorter cut. I think in other movies you might have seen him in. And then let's talk about Rachel Hilson, who's Nina Hayes, the other
Yeah, the first,
actor.
yeah, the show has her as the first black FBI agent. Obviously, what we're going for here is a kind of Pam Grier vibe. In fact,
Hmm.
that's even
In
called
fact,
out.
yeah, they call it out a lot.
Yeah, they call it out. But I like her. I think she's doing a good job. And this harkens back, to numerous like black exploitation movies in the
Yep.
'70s and things like that. And and yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I enjoy her position, and she's dealing with the office politics and out trying to do her job, and she's not intimidated so much.
Hmm.
It I yeah, it's we're gonna see where it goes, obviously, because there's still some more twists and turns to go. But I think she sells it, and I think she does a good job in here. I mean, there are obviously some TV isms here. There are
Hmm.
things that some I don't know if you'd call them plot holes, but like things don't work like that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
There's
yeah,
a number of things that don't. Obviously it's a TV show, right? So you
yeah.
have to look aside for something, and not necessarily her particularly, but there's things like actions like in the office and some office politics and the way they
Yeah,
interact
how
and
that would
things.
I feel like
Yeah,
that really wouldn't happen, right? Well, it's a show, right?
right. Yeah,
It wouldn't
exactly.
happen in
So
real life, some of that stuff. Yeah. It
yeah,
would be
yes,
caught pretty quickly or disciplined pretty quickly, some
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So she is loosely inspired by Sylvia Mathis, the first black female FBI agent.
mhm.
And her character honors that legacy, which is interesting. I have to do a dig on Sylvia Mathis. That sounds like an interesting story. But yeah, I think she does a really good job. She's not there's always a comment of she's very competent, but she's not like a Mary Sue, I guess. Is that the
Right. Hmm.
She's not
Yeah, I
really a
would agree
Mary
with
Sue.
that.
She does have her flaws. I think the main one, being sort of a drive and vengeance, it could be a key flaw there. And and she's not like, in a way, sometimes it's more like luck than skill, sometimes, So,
I
but
think
she's
that's fair.
persistent.
Yeah.
She's persistent though, and I think that's her biggest quality, her most forward quality is that persistence, and that is what kind of gets her to where she's her success, I think. Keeps digging. Even to the point of, the danger. I think that's a very compelling type of character, to me.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, and I guess what I'm referring to is the office politics and the fact that you find out really quickly in the show. So I mean, it's a minor spoiler, but you find out I think in the first episode that Saxton, the crime boss they're going after, Keith David's character, was involved with the death of her father. And
Right.
there's no way she's going to get out of the academy and immediately be assigned to the case
Yeah.
of the guy who killed her father, right? And it's not like she keeps it a secret. So
Mhm. Right.
you, that's not going to happen. But it's fine. It's like I say, I've been enjoying it, and I do like her character, and
Hmm.
her partner. Like we say, we have the Navajo agent who,
Yeah, that's Asivak Kustashin is Oswan, right? Is that him?
mhm,
He's
yep,
a Cree Inuk actor from Canada.
correct,
So,
yep,
all right, so which is cool. Yeah, so he plays like a Navajo nations who went into the FBI, and I feel like that is something that they could explore a lot more. That's kind of, to me, that's very interesting. Especially in Arizona and New Mexico, because Navajo and Hopi nations such a large presence there.
right.
Um, yeah, it's something that maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's only 2 episodes left, and they've only touched on it. But they have so much already on the plate, so I don't know if that would be left to. But I mean, there's other. I mean, I like it, I guess, because I also like that show, Dark Winds. I don't know if you've seen that show,
Hmm.
Dark Winds.
Yep.
Yep. So that's maybe another podcast to discuss. Anyway, but but that's kind of crime and western, I would say, more than this. Anyway, I think that was a pretty interesting. I think he does a great job. It's a really cool interaction. Our buddy Keith David, who is a deep voice, right? He's been around.
Hmm.
He's singing and stuff too, right? So man, he's been in a lot of things.
Yeah, starting with like the Thing.
The
Of course,
Thing.
everybody should know him from the Thing.
Yep.
Um,
He was in
he,
Armageddon.
yep, yeah,
Yeah.
he's
So
in a bunch of stuff.
yeah.
He's
Oh man. Yeah. It's Emmy winning voice actually.
yeah, it's good to see him on the screen again.
Yeah, it's really
Like I
good.
say, yeah, I'm happy with pretty much all the performances. I just think it's a little bit too packed with subplots.
Yeah.
But
I think that's it. Yeah. How about the other? So those are the three main, right?
mhm,
Well, we mentioned Agent Bitsui, but then we have the Saxton kids.
right,
So Benjamin Charles Watson and Sydney Elizabeth play Royce and Genesis Saxton. It's pretty interesting. And then we have Carmel Guati as Izzy. I think
right,
it's a very, like I said, it's a very good cast. I would say.
no, yeah, it's interesting, and they're all definitely interesting stories. It's just I'd like to see it given space to breathe.
Hmm. So yeah,
But
so that's I guess an interesting commentary. That is it eight, like you mentioned already, 8 episodes is not really enough time to develop all these things, I think.
right, yeah, which sounds like I'm bashing the show, and I guess to some degree I am, but it's not that I don't enjoy it. I mean, I'm looking forward to each episode when they drop, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think that's it. Like if you're interested in something and you kind of like it, you want it to be better, right?
hmm
So how could it be better? I think is natural thought process.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think it could. So yeah, yeah, so that's Duster. I don't think there's anything else we need to discuss about it because without spoiling, and I didn't really want to spoil it. Like I
No, I
think
agree.
we will come back. We're so far been 6 episodes. Maybe by the time I drop it, seven will come out, but probably will get back together, even if it's just like through voice voicemail type of communication to say our final thoughts on the show and if our sort of premises or hypotheses here about too much packed in, if it all unravels in a big tangly mess or if it's wrapped up nicely. Again, maybe he's only given the developers were only given like, hey, we'll give you like one season. Let's see how it goes. But after
Yeah,
that, what happens? I mean, I guess it depends.
right. I worry that they're not going to wrap it up. I worry it's going to end on a cliffhanger. It's not going to get a second season, and then we'll
So we'll
just
never
be
know.
yeah.
Unless
But
I mean, but interestingly, the show is. I mean, it's not called Nina, right? It's called Duster. So I don't know if maybe there's this idea of Jim Ellis's character driving off into the sunset, and then we kind of like the hitchhiker,
mhm.
I guess. He becomes like the focus of another, I don't know, another season.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting because you can't if you solve the Saxon issue, right? We
Right.
solved this whole thing in the season, then
Hmm.
they have no reason to work together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
find out.
We'll
Yeah,
find
we'll
out.
see. Yeah, if you were gonna to do something based on this, is there a
Yeah.
game you would specifically use?
Yeah. I'm not the game scholar that you are. I mean, I don't know. Is there a game that specifically does a sort of like a road trip car chase in the 70s? I mean, I could think of how I could use like a Wise Guys. I could see how Wise Guys could work. Yeah.
So that's Savage Worlds,
Savage Worlds,
and
yeah.
and yeah, you could do that way. I would use Get Funky to be honest.
What
Uh,
is Get
so
so okay, explain Get Funky to me,
so Get
please.
Funky is based on the minimal D6 system, which is basically a stripped down version of West End Games D6, like we saw
Oh,
in Star
beautiful.
Wars.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay. And it's kind of a simplified version of that. And it's built specifically to do like 70s movies, right?
Hmm.
And those stereotypes. And I would use it for this because I think the system, you kind of want to get it out of the way and you want your characters to be able to do cool things. You want it still street level. We don't want to do, and that's anything with Savage Worlds is
Yeah, it
it's,
could get over the top.
yeah, it can
Yeah, I
get
don't think it's
too
got
over
over
the
the top
top.
yet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're like I mentioned earlier, it's more that they're. I mean, yeah, so sure, Jim's great at what he does. Is that Jim is probably like the hero level,
Right.
near superhero
Mhm.
level, right? Because I mean, his driving is really fantastic. But the others, you're right there. It's kind of more like street level, um, as opposed to over the top pulpy, I would say. So.
Right. So yeah, I would probably use Get Funky though. I think that would work really well with this and kind
Hmm.
of get out of the way for you to just inhabit the characters and tell the story. I mean, Savage Worlds could work. Honestly, you could use something like GURPS for this without a problem. Um,
Hmm.
that, you know, there's a number of systems that could work for it, but because your emphasis isn't so much fights as it is just kind of your character's a little more well-rounded than that.
Hmm.
And even in fights, we see neither of these characters. Well, mainly we've seen Jim in a number of fights, and
Yeah.
he's okay. He's not bad. Like when they're in the biker bar and
Oh yeah.
they get that fight. There's a fight in a bar that he does really well in that fight. But in most of the fights, he's kind of holding his own a little bit better than the opposition. But he definitely takes licks. You
Yeah.
know, he's
Yeah.
not. It's not like he's Chuck Norris or somebody where
Right.
or Steven Seagal where nobody touches him. Right.
Yeah, and I think in that fight he's because he has like usually he's like just him and somebody. In that fight he had Ezra with
Mm-hmm.
them, so
Right. Yeah.
he was pretty competent. But they give a good rationale for why these guys are good at what they do. At the
Well,
military
they're all
backgrounds.
vets,
They're all
right?
vets, yeah.
Yeah, he was in Vietnam. You know,
Mhm.
Ezra and his father were in World War II together.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then his
so they give
he
those
and his brother were in
backgrounds.
Vietnam. Yeah,
Yep. So yeah, it's pretty good. So that's the way I would go.
Get
Um,
Funky. Yeah, I have to check that out.
yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think a game where, I mean, I'm sure there's a Powered by the Apocalypse game that could give like a similar.
Well, Spirit of 77
Yeah,
would be the go-to there. That's a little bit more.
that also kind
You,
of
you could use
heroic.
it. Well, it's not that it's heroic as there's a lot of pulpy kind of over the top things in there. Maybe more so. It's
Oh yeah, it's very the cover is very.
Yeah. But it could work. You could definitely use that. If you want to do a Powered by the Apocalypse game, I think that'd probably be the one to go to.
Mhm.
But you know, um,
Yeah, that incorporates more like also like the like the the kung fu martial arts as well, like the black
yeah, but it's got
exploitation.
super science in there and stuff like
Yeah.
that too, which is
Okay.
kind of outside the realm of what we're looking at here, I think.
So far,
So
who
far.
knows? Who knows?
Exactly. Who knows? Yeah, because we don't know. Yeah, without spoilers, there's a couple things that could turn out where that might be important. So we'll
Yeah.
find out. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope I just had a bad thought here. What was that? The name of that company in Lost?
I never watched Lost. I can't
Um,
answer that. Yeah.
the Dark. If I see Dharma Initiative, I'm gonna like be very upset.
You'll eject, huh? You'll be done.
Yeah, I'll be
But
like, oh come on.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
for those of you who watch Lost, if you recall, Dharma Initiative was like the whole over their company that got all those people on the island. Although they messed that up too because it turned out. Well, I'm not going to spoil it. You go watch Lost.
yeah. Yeah, there you go. Well, so let's switch gears here then
Okay.
to the modern Western or the contemporary Western, which you know is a Western. Well, so it's kind of weird because most of the what we're calling contemporary Westerns, they kind of pull some themes out of Westerns, but they kind of deconstruct them as well. So it's looking at those at the kind of Western value, maybe not values, but you know, kind of like the ideals and a lot of the themes of the old
Western
Western
aesthetic.
movies.
Oh yeah, like justice and all that kind of yeah.
Right, and they relook at that in a modern day and kind of you know tear those things down and relook at them. We have like Hell or High Water is
Hmm.
a definitely you know a standout of that genre, right?
No
I
Country
think
for Old Men,
No Country for Old Men
the
is
Yellowstone series.
the Yellowstone series, but you also have some that don't necessarily deconstruct those things, like Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man.
Yeah.
I think is a modern Western, right?
Hmm.
And that one, I mean, it's kind of like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid remade, you know, set in the near future.
Right.
But or the El Mariachi movies
Yeah.
fall in this category, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, I think. But most of them are more like your old Country for Old Men, Hell or High Water,
Mhm.
Wind River, you know, and these kind of
A
break
lot of
things
Taylor,
down.
a lot of Taylor
Yeah.
Sheridan stuff, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, even when you look at things like you know, in this if you look on Wikipedia at the list, we've got things like Brokeback Mountain on here. We have the Kill Bill movies. I wouldn't put the Kill
I
Bill
know.
movies in this category. I think this is Once Upon a Time Mexico. Yes, I would. Well, that's part of the Mariachi series.
Yeah.
The Way of the Gun. That's an interesting one to
Oh yeah.
add. That's actually so if you have tender ears and sensibilities, don't watch The Way of the Gun.
Hmm.
But if you want to see actually a really good action movie and an interesting movie, The Way of the Gun with Ryan Felipe, I never know how to say his last name, and Benicio del Toro is actually, and James Caan is a great movie. I do recommend The Way of the Gun. It's kind of a fun movie. Yeah, that one's definitely a modern western. I would say that falls in there in that category, and it's you know these gunmen get over their head, and and we kind of pan out as they're way over their head, and you know as they're doing this job, which is kind of interesting. And
Yeah.
that's the theme of a lot of these. Like I mentioned, Hell or High Water, they get in over their head, right? And which that one though is just people trying to, you know, these brothers trying to get by. And
Yep.
yeah, where yeah, another excellent movie, I highly recommended. Hell or High Water. You know, I can't recommend that one enough.
Mhm. Yeah,
Great
well,
movie.
that is kind of like modern westerns. They explore themes of justice, survival, or
Hmm.
what is the American dream? Can we get to the American dream? That's why Hell and High Water is such a good example of that, right? And of course, they use the
Right.
Southwest landscape as a background. But I've even seen like it's like almost every single Taylor Sheridan thing seems to be thrown into modern western because I've even seen Sicario thrown in there as
Yeah,
modern western.
I
But
don't
I
know.
think that's more that and his other project, Lioness, especially the last season was all in the Southwest more or less. So, but so
Right.
see, I don't know. That to me is like, sure there might be some crosstalk there, but I think those are more, conspiracy, crime. When you get the government agents involved, it's a little different to me.
Right. Where you could put something like Extreme Prejudice in there, right, by Walter Hill
Yep.
with Nick Nolte
Oh yeah,
and
yeah. Hmm.
Powers Booth. Great movie. And that's definitely a Western, and
Yeah.
it's set in modern times, you know, and that even calls back to like the Wild Bunch there at the shootout at the
Hmm.
end. It's like
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
So that counts in there. And you know, a lot of these, yeah, I don't know. But you mentioned like TV shows, and actually we have a lot of TV shows that fall into this, like Dark Winds and Outer Range, both kind
Yep.
of do that kind of mix in
Hmm.
that kind of supernatural questioning element in
Mm.
there, right? Or Justified falls in this category, I think,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Without a
does,
doubt.
right?
Yeah,
Guys with boots and cowboy hats and
yeah, yeah.
shoot
The
things
kind
up.
of those Western values with
Right.
the you know our main character,
The
but set in a
Yeah, black
modern
hats
age.
versus white hats for sure,
Hmm.
right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting how that goes.
Right.
Um
Or you could even throw in like Sons of Anarchy, I guess,
oh, yeah.
degree. Because yeah, they're bikers, but you're kind of still
Yeah,
y-
substitute bikes for horses.
right. Yeah, because they're dealing with the other gangs. I don't know. That might be stretching. Um, you know, like the list has like Breaking Bad on here, but I don't know that Breaking Bad's a modern Western, to be honest. That's I don't see the connect other than the set, you know, kind
Yeah,
of
so that's
set
what I mean. It's like, oh, if it's
West.
set in the Southwest, is it a modern Western? I think
Yeah,
that's I think
I
that's a
wouldn't call
stretching it.
Breaking.
That's stretching
No.
it.
But the Yellowstone or Longmire definitely is. But again, I think Longmire have you watched Longmire?
No, I have not.
Oh, check it out. It's a great cop show. It's
Mhm.
set on a series of books,
Oh, okay.
but it's actually a really good show. It's got Lou Diamond Phillips in there, Katie Sackhoff's in there.
Hmm,
Some really good actors are in there. It's worth watching. Uh,
that's cool.
yeah, I do recommend Longmire.
Yeah, so you think that could be, I mean, you could to run a modern Western, you could do so many things. I mean, anything really. You could even do, well, I mean, I guess I would probably default to something like, could you use like a traditional Western type of game to
Yeah,
play a modern Western, like Aces and Eights, which I enjoyed, even though you didn't kill me. The dice killed me.
the Hobbs killed you, but
Yeah.
no, yeah, I think you easily could because you think about it. The difference between a Western and modern day, it depends what you're doing with it. But for the most part, guns haven't changed that much. So if it has a solid shootout mechanic that you know that'll still work, and you know your base character types, archetypes are kind of still there. I mean, it depends. Like I don't know that it'd be that easy to update, say like Deadlands to use for a modern Western.
Yeah, that's true because it's too supernatural, I think.
Right. Yeah, because the other thing we talk about modern westerns, and
Hmm.
I guess this also blends into the idea of moving the western to space. Whether you're talking about, you know, Firefly obviously is the, you know,
Star
but
Wars, even.
or Star Wars, of course. Well, even like you could even look at like the original Mad Max to some degree, right?
Hmm.
Where you kind of, you know, society hasn't totally broken down yet, but it's getting there. Or like the video game Interstate 77, 76. Yeah,
Yeah.
Interstate. Did you ever, I don't know if You remember that from late '90s,
Mhm.
but you know that would fall in that kind of category.
Some
Um,
people would say Fallout,
yeah, yeah. I
right?
mean, yeah. But again, now we're starting to. I mean, there's
Diverge.
definitely elements in there,
Yeah.
but yeah, at some point it becomes more sci-fi than Western. When
Sci-fi
you look like,
apocalyptic. Yep. Then
yeah, where you look at like Outland or
mhm.
honestly Firefly or even like Cowboy Bebop to some degree, kind
Yep.
of fall in that Western,
Hmm.
genre. I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
Um, yeah, I think most game it wouldn't be that hard to pick a game because you're more interested in it depends how really you have to decide how super heroic you want your characters to be or if you want them to be at all. And then you
Hmm.
build your game off that. Like Savage Worlds, I love the system. It's a great system. And you can do all kinds of genres with it, but it leans towards cinematic and kind of over the top action because you have exploding dice and you have
Yeah.
the card mechanic. And while you can pare those back to make the game grittier, I don't think the game is at its best if it's gritty. I think you're better off picking a different game
Hmm.
than that. Unless you only want to ever use one engine, in which case I think Savage Worlds can do that, but I don't think it thrives with if you take away the bennies and you say you can only have max two raises or something like that to
Hmm.
make it feel more grounded. I think
Right.
Savage Worlds kind of it doesn't do as well at that point. You're not letting it
Be
really do what
Savage
it's
Worlds.
best
Yeah,
at.
you're kind of
Yeah,
limiting. So
yeah,
I guess if you wanted to add supernatural elements, you could use like Dark Conspiracy or
hmm
alter Alternity, Dark Matter type of thing, because that's kind of set back in that period. I mean, you could skip move it back to that period pretty easily, I think, if you
yeah,
wanted to
and
do that.
yeah, and Dark Conspiracies come. I think next year they're looking to
Oh, really?
have it come back out. Mongoose owns it now, and they're going to re-release it using the Traveler rules. Their current Traveler rules. They're going to
Yeah,
build it
that'd
on
be
that.
yeah. Well, they did that with the right. They had a unified Games Workshop of that unified system, that unified weird D20 system that they did.
Right.
Um, which is fine for the time. I liked it.
hmm
I used it a lot, so I think that's what they want to do is move it back to like the 2D6, plus or minus DM type of system, make it
Right.
more compatible, I guess. So,
Yep.
or just have one
Well,
system.
yeah, I think that's the bigger thing they're looking at is to have one main system
Hmm.
with slight variations. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I almost don't think the system is as important when you're looking at these things as the getting all the players on the same sheet of music as far as the tone of the game. Because
Right. Yeah,
this
I
is
guess you
definitely
gotta.
one. Yeah, this is definitely a tone where or a game you're trying to do this because most of these modern westerns are pretty serious in tone.
Yep.
So you don't want your players making you know crazy jokes in the middle of the game or spamming with memes during the game and making people laugh. And not that you can't laugh and have fun, but
Hmm.
if you're going to keep that consistent tone, you kind of have to have buy-in from the players to do that.
Yeah, you gotta kind of say, hey, we're gonna play like something like Yellowstone or No Country for Old Men, as opposed to I don't know, it's a campy Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That's a Western.
Yeah, well, or what was the last one the Coens brothers did with they had a bunch of set pieces. Crap. I'm
Coen Brothers set pieces.
the last one they did was crap. I forget what it's called now. It had a bunch of like little movies in it. Um,
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. But I don't remember what the name of it was. It had a
I,
lot of
I
familiar people. Jason remembered.
yeah, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
It,
I mean it was definitely like over the top, campy, bloody, but and
right,
very and humorous, right? So
right, or
I
even like Raising Arizona, right? Would falls in
oh
that too.
yeah. That's kind of a fun cat and mouse though. I guess you could make it. It is a serious situation.
Well, sure, because you got kids kidnapped, but I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, it's like a comedy movie, right?
Yeah, it's a
It's but
dark
it fits right
comedy.
in the Western theme.
Yeah.
Actually, as much as anything else here is a modern Western, Raising Arizona kind of really is.
Yeah.
To some degree,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
got
of
that.
interesting things going.
Yeah, it's got the man in black, riding the town.
Hmm
Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
but
that's
lots
good.
of cool stuff. Or even when you look at Western movies, they don't necessarily have to be set in modern times because I think all these modern movies current movies are deconstructing these themes to look at. When we look at like the remake of True Grit, right?
Yeah.
I realize that's 15 years ago now. Geez, we're getting old.
Yeah.
But that, obviously that approaches a lot differently than the John Wayne True Grit did.
Hmm.
And even like with the Clint Eastwood stuff, your later movies are obviously trying to look at it differently.
Yeah,
When you
like
look like Unforgiven, right?
Unforgiven versus an earlier movie.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting. All right. Well, good stuff. We went from Duster to modern westerns.
Yep. Well, thank you for asking me to join you, Carl. I
Yeah, it's
appreciate it.
fun. It's a very fun discussion. Go check out Duster, see what you think. Call in and comment.
Yep. You can call
So
me. I'm happy with that.
something like that. But yeah, I think like I said, we'll see how it ends up doing. Make a few comments, shorter probably. Make a few comments on how we thought it did. I don't know if they're gonna renew it or not. We don't know. I haven't heard anything. And or did they? Is it just a one-off? Yeah, who knows? So, but really, I think it's really fun ideas that you can take out of that. From like the games that we mentioned. You know, you could maybe run something similar to this, run sort of a crime drama conspiracy, um, lots of cars, lots of big hair type of game, set in the 70s would be really fun with the several of the systems that we mentioned. And then I think it's always fun to run a Western. It's pretty, it just comes so like natural almost. I don't know if that makes sense. Right? Just
It,
do you feel it's easy to run a Western? I guess that'll be our last question here. I thought we were going to
I
wrap up,
do.
but
Yeah, I do. I really enjoy westerns. I like running them. I think everybody kind of falls into those I don't know,
tropes, I
stereotypes
guess.
the right word, but the
Tropes, yeah.
tropes,
Yep.
yeah, pretty easily. And even some of the older games like Boot Hill really actually run very.
I
They're
thought
simple
so.
to run.
Yep.
They work well, and they're actually really good for conventions.
Yep.
And especially if you're going to do a convention in person with westerns, then you can break out the figures and train, break out your. Even if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can get the paper buildings and things, and you can build it out
Oh yeah,
and
that'd be fun.
have a lot of fun with that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's cool. Yeah. Speaking of which, in Duster, like the intro, they have like a little cars and stuff going through the terrain, kind of like model
right.
sets.
Hmm.
It's kind of neat,
Yeah,
neat visual. All
yeah.
right. Well, thank you so much, Jason, for coming on to discuss Duster, conspiracy, crime dramas, and the modern Western genre.
Anytime.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening to the Geomologist Presents. If you have any comments or questions on what I talked about in my intro or the really fun conversation with Jason Connerly, please shoot me a line. You can do that by sending me a message, either a typed message or a voice message at geomologist@gmail.com. You can also send me a DM through Discord, or you can use the SpeakPipe account and send me a short message through that. The link is in the show notes. I also have the links, if I remember, I hope I remember, for the games that we mentioned, although Get Funky was on itch.io, but it was pulled. So, but if you, as Jason told me, if you have the persistence, you can probably find it. So, anyway, let us know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later. Good night and good rolling.